You are live. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and wildlife lovers around the world, and welcome to Safari Live. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie, and I have VM, the wildebeest, on camera with me this morning. And as you can see, we have started off really wonderfully with a couple of lady giraffe who are making their way down and having a quick breakfast snack. In the meantime, James and Jandre are off exploring the eastern side of the reserve to see what they can see. VM and I are on our way to Arathusa to see if we can catch up with Karula and poor exhausted Tingana, the two leopards who were seen mating yesterday afternoon. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a live safari, so everything that you're seeing on your screen is happening right here in real time on Djuma and Arathusa game reserves within the Sabi Sands. Now, I'm told by Tara and Jerry in FC that the temperature this morning is 17 degrees Celsius, which is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Personally, I'm not sure I believe them. It is definitely warmer than that. I'm sweating, and it's not even 6 o'clock in the morning. Definitely a really, really humid day. It's got a very close, moist smell to the air. And I'm hoping that at some point this heat wave is going to break and it's going to bring us a little bit of rain. Right, without further ado, I'm going to reposition so we can get a little bit of a better view of the giraffe. And while I do that, for any new viewers, just remember that not only are we a live safari, but we're also interactive. Let's see if I can get the two at the back as well. Which means that if you're seeing something that interests you and you want to know more, you can send us your questions or comments. And you can do that on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv and stick with us because we've got 3 hours of wonderful live wildlife viewing, which means, of course, that the animals don't always stay exactly where you want them to. We might have to say goodbye to our ladies, who are moving off into a very thick guarri thicket. Amazing how an animal that is so tall and so large can disappear off behind the leaves. Right, as I said, I'm on my way to Arathusa, and I know that Heidi and Pretty Nightmare and Christy, you all heard reports, or you reported to us, that you heard lion audio at the Arathusa Dam camera. And Eddie, Abby, you said that you saw 2 lions there, and we'll definitely be following up on that as well. My plan of action is to start nice and early, first thing in the morning, and go and see if we can track down those leopards first, and then we'll listen to any of the other reports from the guides and see if they can tell us where those lions have gone and which lions they are. Goodbye, giraffe. You seem to have completely disappeared. And it is a truly glorious morning, but definitely promises some scorching weather on the way. Just look at that sunrise and those clouds. As I said, we're heading off to poor old Tingana. And the reason that I'm saying that about a mating leopard is because I actually cannot believe that another female is drawing his attention in. It's Karula this time, or this again. He has definitely had an exhausting few weeks. And I guess that's what comes of being the successful male leopard in an area. I'm not sure where the Anderson male is, the other competing male, but he's obviously off further into the west, leaving Tingana to respond to the attentions of all of the ladies. But I'm hoping because of their activities they're not going to have moved too far from Red Dam. Also a bit of a breeze to the air. It brings a bit of light relief. Dodge dung beetles. I'm just checking the western edge of Djuma just in case they decided to cross through and come and join us on this side. Then something that's very interesting to watch with these mating leopards, and we've seen it with all of them over the last few weeks, is the way that the females simply accompany the male wherever he wants to go, even if it means going very far outside their territorial boundaries. Now, typically Arethusa is not really part of Karula's domain. She's more based around Djuma and Buffelshoek in that area. But obviously she's quite willing to follow her man for this time. I'm not sure how long they have been mating for. I'm hoping that they're still sort of smack bang in the middle of it, which means we have another few days with them. We just have to find them. Ellies have been through here. I'm just coming up to one of my favorite clearings on this reserve, which is in Impala Plains. Snake eagle sitting on the top of that tree. We're only going to get him in silhouette. Here he goes. Definitely a brown snake eagle. See the clear legs free from fur. Oh, not fur, feathers. Oh, disappearing off into the sun. And the reason that I knew just as we went past that quickly that it was a brown snake eagle is that very erect posture that they have. They sit up very straight. It's something that you don't see in a lot of the other raptor species. It's that, and then the buzzard posture, which is slightly tilted forward. Jiggers acquired a sort of a loose piece of rubber around the footwell. So if at some point I go to accelerate and suddenly jerk to a halt, it's because my foot's got stuck in the rubber flap, which has happened to me twice this morning already. I mentioned earlier that Eddie Abbey saw lions at the Arethusa Dam camera, and Diane and Lynn have both confirmed that they were watching the two lionesses, as yet unknown as to who they were, but the two lionesses that they saw sleeping there for most of the night before heading off south towards the lodge at around 2 a.m. So they've got about 4 hours head start on us. The nice thing is that if they are around the lodge, most of the guides will be leaving from that position, so they should pick up on them. yesterday afternoon we had the Nkuhuma Pride on the Buffelshoek boundary, and it's something that you will see us do fairly regularly in the evenings, especially with lion prides and leopards. We'll use the spotlight to try and find them, and we catch that reflective layer that's at the back of their eyes. And Leslie, who's watching all the way in California, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering if amber eyes, so there's one lioness in the Nkuhuma Pride with very, very amber, orange-coloured eyes. You were wondering if her eyes shine differently in the spotlight. And the answer is no, just because it is dependent more on the layer at the back rather than the colour of the eye. So you'll get differences in colour and reflection, but that's to do with the type of animal and the type of whether or not it's a diurnal or a nocturnal animal. So for the most part, the herbivores shine a sort of a green colour, and then for the predators and for the nocturnal animals, they shine almost like a hazard sticker or a hazard suit. They've just got that extra bright layer because they are adapted to being nocturnal. The one exception to that, there's two actually that I can think of, although it does sometimes depend on the angle that you get them at. But bush babies shine up an almost red colour, and I'm not sure if that's to do with the fact that they probably have better colour vision than most of the other animals out here. Nightjars as well also look red at times. Okay, sneaky leopards. Where have you gone? Whilst I continue on my search for these leopards and where they've disappeared off to, we've chatted a lot about lions, and I think that James would like to chat to you some more. So let's head across to him and see how his morning's going, and I'll be back with you a little bit later.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Well, you've been welcomed, of course. This is your secondary welcome, this time to the recalcitrant old bag that is Wendy, a little car that has been behaving over the last 2 days, which is excellent news. My name is James. On camera today we have Jean-Andre. Jean-Andre is looking very disappointed, of course, because he planned a beautiful tracking shot of the clouds here, and as you came live, a bushel got in the way of his picture, so he's now in a sulk. Never mind, I'm sure that he will cheer up during the course of the morning. It's wonderful to have you with us, and we've come to the eastern side of Djuma, hoping to find or follow up on tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride. Now, unfortunately, we did find the tracks. That is fortunate, but unfortunately they've crossed further east into, well, sort of between Torchwood and Buffelshoek, and they're heading towards the Kruger National Park. And they've been spending quite a lot of time there of late, I think trying to avoid the Birmingham boys. But the Birmingham boys are conspicuous by their absence, and so I still think that there's going to be some interesting lion stuff going on here in terms of the males. Perhaps we will have the Salati males coming down south from the Manileti. Perhaps the Matimbas will make a return, or I think that's unlikely. Perhaps Junior will set himself up here. Apparently, I'm very sad I didn't see him. Apparently he's looking very healthy and strong. I think he's quite a big lion. I think he's going to be a big lion, bigger than those Birmingham boys. And I think that's because his father, one of the Matimbas, is a very large fellow indeed. I keep looking down just to check the road for tracks. The other reason we've come into this area is hopefully to find Mvula, the spirit leopard. He does seem to disappear into that block. The block that Brent was tracking him in yesterday is something of a Bermuda Triangle. So I'm not holding, I don't want to pin my hopes on it, but certainly we do hope to have sight of Mvula later today. Now, as I'm sure Jamie told you, this is a live safari. You are welcome and encouraged indeed to talk to us, #Safari Live, or questions at wildlife. No, not wildlife. Questions at WildEarth.tv. It's early morning. And tell us, give us your comments, ask us your questions, anything you like, well, within reason, of course, and we will do our level best to answer them. As for now, we're just going to continue slowly down this cut line, the cheetah cut line, and probably won't stop moving at all. And the reason we're not going to stop moving is that it remains probably about, I'd say, 27, 28 degrees centigrade. Now that for the early morning is very hot. That's about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely hot for this time of the morning. I mean, it's barely 6 o'clock, and it's quite sticky. It's quite humid, and we spent a night with fans on our bodies because it was really pretty hot the whole night. But I think this cloud is going to clear, and I think it's going to be another scorcher today. Predicted 38 degrees Celsius, which is about 5 million Fahrenheit. Also a little bit of rain predicted for 11 o'clock this morning. I'm not sure where that rain's going to come from, unless it's going to fall straight out of the blue heavens, which I think is unlikely, given what we know about weather patterns. Okay, now for me waffling on in my fancy driving position, let's move a little bit faster. We're going to Buffelshoek Dam to see if anything's come down there, and then we'll make a plan from there. We'll keep checking the road for tracks, of course, very important. And as I have said a few times, in fact, Andre pointed this out to me before he went on leave. He won't remember doing it, but he did. He said, isn't it more difficult to track after the rain? And I said, no, it's easier because the road's softer. But absolutely, as soon as the sun hits the rain, it creates a crust over the top of the road, and then it does definitely become much harder to track because we just don't see the impressions of the animals in the road. We did see impressions of those lions heading east, unfortunately, and I think that was from pretty early last night. You watched them with Brent for a while moving east. They came back out onto the road here, out of Buffelshoek onto the Buffelshoek cut line, and they just continued going into the rising moon. Now, comments on Brent in comparisons, Junior in comparisons with Brent. Donna Wan, you say that Junior's looking more suave than Brent these days. I have used many adjectives to describe Brent Leo Smith over the years. Suave, I'm not sure, is one of them. He's a bit, suave implies some kind of a lack of authenticity, I feel, some kind of attempt to put on a kind of refinement that isn't really there, and I don't feel that Brent does that at all. Certainly a very fine specimen is Brent, but he's a rather authentic fellow, so I think maybe suave is the wrong way to describe him. But yes, I can see the kind of comparison. Good one, Donna. It is really quite warm. I'm very glad we won't be taking a midday game drive today. Sitting at my desk with my arms stuck to it from the sweat. What a lovely thought. We have seen a few impala today, otherwise I think everything is pretty much in hiding, waiting for another very steamy day. To coax something out before the end of the drive. So Buffelshoek is our last bit of rainwater, I suppose. We do have a pumped pan at the dam, which you guys can watch on the Juma Dam cam. But Buffelshoek Dam is the last little bit of kind of natural water. Well, it's not that natural, there's a dam there, but it's not pumped. And it's turning quite fast, exponentially faster as the days go on, into a bit of a mud wallow. And when that dries, I think this is going to be a fairly barren, particular part of the reserve. We'll be spending a lot more time on Arathusa around the water there. But who knows, we might be lucky. Young Mvula might be around. Even the birds are quite subdued this morning. There hasn't been much of a dawn chorus. They're all still panting away. And I saw an impala this morning, a young female, well, not a young female, adult female, but looking very, very pregnant, so very swollen, and I don't think it's long now. I don't think it's long now before the little lambs start to pop out. It should be about 2 weeks till the lambs pop out, the first ones. Middle to end of November, so maybe a little bit more than 2 weeks. Very, very exciting time of the year, especially when the storms that build over Buffelshoek actually reach us. So we'll just get to the dam and then we'll stop and we'll have a listen to what's going on, because there's not a huge amount to see at the moment. But to listen, there's always something to listen to, always something to smell. Here the crested francolin. Oh, there's a saddle-billed stork there. Hippopotamus, a woolly-necked stork, many woolly-necked storks. We'll get up to them now. I just don't want to frighten those other storks off. They've recently been taking flight as soon as they see the vehicles. So I'm going to move very slowly up towards them. You can see, and the hippo is now coming out of the water. Bizarre behaviour, they've taken fright at us completely. What a spoonbill! It's all happening here. So on the left we've got the saddle-billed storks, sorry about that, Jean-Andre. Then moving steadily to the right we've got the hippopotamus, which has taken fright at us. He's limping quite badly. Oh, so we know him. We saw him at the Djuma camera a little while back at the Djuma Dam, walking over there. I think that limp looks a bit better, but it's certainly not very good. You do not want to come across him on foot. The hippopotamus that is not in the water and is limping and feeling threatened will be very, well, irritated if you come across him on foot. Very unusual for him to have got out of the water because we came along here. And then you've got a whole lot of woolly-necked storks. Now the woolly-necked stork is a migratory species. It doesn't live here. It comes over for the summertime, and I just want to check if they breed here or not. I suspect that they do not. I'm just going to quickly check for you. And they will all, as this water dries out, they will be loving the sort of food boon. But it does come with a bit of a caveat, in that because the water, yes, of course they're eating a lot now because the water's drying up, but this food resource will be eaten up pretty soon, and if it doesn't rain properly, all that will be left here, as has been the case in all the other waterholes, will be enormous catfish, and they will be inedible to the likes of those storks. Yes, they do breed here, especially in Namibia and Botswana. Now we're sitting here at the water talking about fish, and Andre in Florida, you want to know if I ever go fishing. Andre, There are a few things in life that I'm really bad at. Well, no, there are quite a few, but you can easily draw a top 10 list. Top of that list is drawing things. I'm really bad at that. And somewhere probably around third or fifth in the list is fishing. I've never had an interest in it, to be honest. So I don't have a huge knowledge of fishing, and so I don't fish here. Brent Leo Smith is an avid fisherman. For me, I'm afraid fishing has never been a huge thing. Can you see the spoonbill there? No, he's right behind the tree. We'll just see if we can't. And with the heron, yes. Beautiful spoonbill. Look at that. It's sweeping from side to side. And you can see why he's called a spoonbill, because his bill looks like a spoon. Well done. There were a few of them here in May, these spoonbills, but I think they're quite nomadic, so they don't necessarily live in one place at all. Nice breeze blowing up, thankfully. You can hear the red-billed buffalo weavers going as they build their nests. But otherwise, these water birds are having an absolute field day here. Yep, caught something. And that I don't have to walk around all day with my face in that slimy green muck, I must say. Right. I don't see Mvula lurking anywhere around here in the shade, in the not shade anywhere actually, so I think we'll probably press on. What we'll do is drive down sort of towards a road called Nyala Road and see if we can't see his tracks coming out there. Brent thought he might pop out there. He drove down there last night, but he didn't see any further sign of the recalcitrant young male leopard. Well, he's not that young. Lovely little scene here. I mean, it'd be a very good place to set up with a cup of coffee and see what came down. Now, to see a hippo leaving the water at this time of the day, especially when it's going to be so hot, Gilly in Wisconsin, you're absolutely correct, it's very unusual. I think it's because he's feeling very nervous, possibly by the vehicle. I think he'll probably come back here fairly soon. And Raggedy Ann, I don't know if it's the one with the gash on his right hand side, but I think it probably is. Get a look at there was on that one with the gash on his right hand side. So we'll just have a look at these beautiful nyala here, very peacefully browsing through the bush. Oh, let's go quickly across to a very exciting sighting with Jamie. See you just now.
Well, welcome back, and as you can see, we have found a leopard tortoise, but there's also two other leopards just off to our left. Hello, you two. Have you been busy all night? Poor old Tingana is looking absolutely exhausted. He's also got a very, very full belly, and the reason I found them was actually because I was attracted to the smell of something in the drainage line, and there's a buffalo carcass down there. It's in some very, very thick bush, but I think that these two have been alternating between their activities with each other and then feeding on the buffalo. You find that with leopards, they're not too fussy. But hello, gorgeous girl, look who it is. our queen herself, looking a little bit battle-scarred on the back of her neck. I think we all know that it's not the gentlest of processes, but they're due for their next session in the next few minutes. That's also how I found them, was leopard mating is quite a noisy affair. So it wasn't too difficult to follow the sounds. Luckily for us, there is that buffalo close to Red Dam, so we had a perfect place to start in terms of finding them. And we've got the sighting all to ourselves. What's up, big boy? He's struggling a little bit. And I can imagine that the heat doesn't make things that much easier either. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this with Karula. I'm not sure how many days she has been mating, but she's going to be finishing up fairly soon and moving back towards Djuma. And then Shadow's been mating with Tingana, and so is Kwetile. And whilst I'm sure that they've been sneaking in other mating sessions with leopards that we haven't seen, or males that we haven't seen, it does seem as though Tingana is going to be fathering quite a few cubs over the next few months, or at least think he is. And I should hope he is, after all the work he's put in. I feel like he deserves to be able to pass on his genetic looks. And he is such a stunning leopard. Look at that neck. He's basically head and shoulders.
And belly.
And belly right now. I think Vim's got a very good point. And belly. Must be quite an effort with a belly like that. Here we go. I'm going to be quiet so you can hear the sounds. Oh, poor Tingana. He doesn't want to. Oh, she's making her work for it. Oh, there we go. Oh. Hey, girl. Now, for those of you who might be joining us for the first time and unfamiliar with leopard mating processes, that might have looked fairly terrifying and very not like a gentle act, and that's because it's not, especially at this point for poor old Tingana, as well as Karula. His penis is barbed, so when he withdraws from her, it hurts her. That's why he grabs the back of her neck to stop her from swatting him until he's finished. And then what happened there was a little bit of increased aggression because I think his claw got hooked in her as they were trying to separate, because usually they bat each other and then separate. But I think they got stuck together a little bit. But she certainly made him work for that particular session. And there's no leopard that knows, or there's no creature that knows how to do a seduction dance quite like a female leopard. Hey, beautiful girl. But you've put yourself right behind a guarri bush now. It's very inconsiderate of you. I'm going to start timing now from that mating session to see how frequent they are. They usually slow down towards the end, and I want to get a rough idea of how much longer we've got left with them. But let me try and reposition, since she has placed her head directly behind a guarri bush. But how exciting is this? I mean, how spoiled have we all been over the last few weeks that we've been treated to so many different viewings. 3 different females mating with Tingana. Shadow twice, Karula twice, Kotile once. Very impressive and very considerate of Mr. Tingana. And through it all, our leopard tortoise is slowly trying to meander out of this sighting. Let's try and get forward. Let's just see what that looks like. There's an inconvenient tree in the way. I don't know, shall I help out quickly, cut it down?
Yes, sure.
I could slot myself closer, but it's just a little bit rude. It's not very considerate to the leopards. Oh, she's so beautiful. And so hot and exhausted and full of food. A beautiful girl. If this is successful, and I will be very impressed with Tingana if it is, but if it is successful, we've got another 3 months to wait until Karula disappears off into the drainage lines. Not that she doesn't do that always, but to go and hide her cubs away in a nice rocky area of a drainage line or hidden away in some really thick bush. Apparently I've been told by the viewers that she really likes to be around the lodge area, around Vuyatela. Definitely an exciting time for us all. And I must actually read into what the success rates are in terms of mating, because clearly her previous attempt wasn't successful, because she's mating again. And the same goes for Shadow. But it's so nice to see. Now, one thing that we do is, of course, we call these sightings in to share them with other guides. Now, there will be others arriving fairly soon. I have called it in, just because I know that, you know, there's plenty of guests who really want to share in this experience. So there are other guides on their way. They'll be here in the next 10 or so minutes. But for now, we've got this exciting sighting all to ourselves, and that is such a treat. They will be here, and I'll chat to the guides then and see who else is arriving. At some point, we may have to pull out of the sighting to give people a chance, because it's limited to 3 vehicles only. But they are on their way. I'm very curious about that buffalo carcass as well, and how it died down there. If it was lions, why did they abandon it? But I think it's definitely a treat for these 2 leopards. It means they don't have to move too far and they can focus on other things apart from hunting. A combination of gluttony and other things at Red Dam. You can see him panting furiously. He's obviously stuffed himself full. And Auntie Lynn, you want to know how far we are from the buffalo? Probably about 70 meters or so from where I first saw it. And it was such a blessing in disguise, because I smelt it, stopped, and because I'd stopped, I'd heard them. And in terms of hyena activity, I haven't seen any yet. It wouldn't surprise me if they are around. But I didn't see any when I went to go investigate the buffalo in the drainage line. There's a fruit chafer in my shoe, which I'm just going to try and dislodge. There we go. Now in the next few minutes, probably in the next minute or two, we're going to see them initiate that mating dance again. And Linda, who's watching in Ontario, you'll be astounded by the number of sessions that they go through. I'm trying to calculate what it would be. It's easily between probably around 5 sessions an hour for 5 days, 5 to 7 days. So what does that mean? It's 5 an hour times 24. Oh, my maths isn't what it should be, but that's about 120 times by 5. That's close to roughly 700 sessions per mating experience for these leopards. It's quite an intense process, and you can just imagine the energy levels required to maintain that, especially on poor Tingana's part, because he has not been left alone by the ladies. But with a face like that, you can understand why. Now the reason it needs to... hello boy. Oh, he's got a bit of a limp. He's basically on top of the car there. Where are you going? I wonder if he's going to the buffalo. Or just desperately trying to escape. Where is he going? Now she's not going to let him get too far away. I think he might just be moving to find a different place to settle down. Oh, he was just moving to go and find a place to defecate. We must return here at some point with a vial, so we can collect that particular sample, since we do know. There goes Karula. Beautiful girl. I wonder where they're off to. They seem to be heading in the direction of that buffalo kill, but they could also be going to Red Dam for water. And at the same time, not only does Tingana have to maintain the standards set by the ladies, but he also needs to mark his territory. Can't get too lax on that. Right, let's go. Better to stay with them. Now Louise, as we head around here to follow them, you want to know which property we're on and where we are. We're close to Red Dam, which is on Arathusa. It's in the sort of northern section of Arathusa. I mentioned that I saw Tingana limping. This is Karula. She's following behind him. And Angie, you were wondering if I could see an injury on Tingana's back leg. I haven't seen one. I only just noticed the limp now. I didn't realize it's something that you have been seeing for the last few days. But we'll keep an eye out for that and see what's happening. I don't think it's too serious. It could just be something acquired during a hunting, or a thorn that got into the wrong place, or possibly even an injury induced by Karula in response to his vigorous attentions. And I haven't quite got around to why it is. I think they are going to that buffalo. I haven't quite got around to why it is they need to mate so frequently. But I will get back to that in a moment. I just want to concentrate on where they're going. They're going to the dam. Alright, let's go this way. Sorry, Liam. We're repositioning. They're going to go have a drink. Right, so the frequency of the mating is quite an interesting explanation. It's something we see in all of the big cats. And it's nature's way of making sure that the actual fertilization happens when the best male for the job is on the case. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. But essentially the female does not properly ovulate, although she's in estrus, until she's had a couple of days worth of stimulation from that spiny penis. Just going to guide one of the other guides in. Just want to hop onto the Game Drive channel. Bear with me for a moment. Gas stations, these Ingwe have just gone mobile into the drainage line. Looks like they're mobile towards the dam. Got him. Cool. There we go. Stopping to have a drink. Is directly to the east of us. There we go, Karula drinking on the right, Tingana making his way slowly with that limp. I think it's his front paw. I think it's his right front paw. And that could even be where they got hooked together, might have made things worse. How's it? How are you? Good, thank you. Cheers. Morning. Yeah, he's definitely limping a little bit. It's his right front. Is his right front. And that was the paw that got stuck when they were in their last mating process that we just witnessed. Now, I'm not sure if that's because there was already an injury, because as one of the viewers pointed out, he has been seen limping before, or it's some other reason. Lovely boy. Shame, you're looking a little bit exhausted. And for new viewers, you can see how incredibly comfortable these animals are with the vehicle. He is less than 2 meters from us, and he chose to come to us. You can see there's not much in the way of affection. It's not as though they're drinking together and staying glued together. And there's that iconic leopard tail. Karula lapping away at the somewhat aptly named Red Dam, because Red Dam at the moment is actually quite green. I'm not going to reposition at the moment because he is so close to my wheel that I really don't want to disturb him. Especially since he definitely doesn't need to be expending any more energy. I was talking about the process of mating and why it has to happen so frequently. Oh, he's gorgeous. And I might be imagining it, but he almost has a slightly exhausted look in his eye. So that whole process has evolved so that the females can mate with multiple males, and they delay ovulating ever so slightly so that by the time they're mating with the final male, he's the one with the strongest genes to pass on. He's trying to get to a nice place without getting his feet wet and without sliding in. He doesn't want to go too much into the mud. Very fastidious. Morning. And he's heading back into the shade to where Karula is. It's actually it is quite a limp. He's not putting much weight. That definitely didn't come from that mating session where his claw got stuck. He's very much favouring that leg. He doesn't even want to put weight on it. But do not fear, they're far more resilient than a human being is in terms of these injuries. I've seen lionesses survive and heal from broken legs that touched the ground and flopped under their weight. So a little injury like this, whatever it is, whether it's a sprained tendon or a sore claw or maybe a thorn, will definitely heal. And even if it means he has to stick to slightly smaller prey for a while, he'll be absolutely fine. And luckily he's got the company of a lady to tend to him, or at the very least to keep him distracted. It's been interesting to watch the way he circled around the dam to drink at different spots, trying to find the perfect one. Here he goes again. And obviously exhausted from a combination of a very full belly and keeping Karula occupied all evening. There you can see how reluctant he is to put that paw down. And the way he's doing that almost makes me think, because he's resting the weight on the side of it, makes me think there might be a thorn or an injury to the bottom of the pad, on the inside of the pad. I absolutely do not think there is a creature, at least in this African bush, that is as iconically beautiful as the leopard. There is something so incredible about them. And Tingana is positively awe-inspiring. That dewlap of his on the front of his neck, massively powerful neck muscles. And he would be easily capable of dragging 60 to 70 to 80 kilograms of meat up into a tree by his mouth and by his claws alone. How incredible is that? As it happens, I haven't seen Tingana in a very, very long time. Not since I first saw him being courted by Kotile, I think it was. And Sandy, who's one of our regular viewers and watching from North Dakota, tells me that there was a fresh injury on the top of Tingana's paw when he was mating with Kwetile, and possibly seen when he was mating with Shadow. And it could be something that's opened up again. How's that? 2 leopards at a dam. The most peaceful thing in the world. Anyway, thank you for that, Sandy. I didn't know that, but we'll definitely know to be keeping an eye out for that in future. Still don't think it's something to be too concerned about, but it's obviously stayed open because it is his right front paw. Be interesting to see if anybody's ever done studies as to whether leopards have a dominant paw that they use more frequently. They must do, to bat at things and to bring things down, and whether that paw gets injured more frequently or whether this is the same injury. Every now and again he gets distracted by the dragonflies zooming past his head. Tail twitching away. And I'm sure so many of you with your domestic cats at home would have seen them drink exactly like this. There's just a subtle difference in size. Leopards are not as water dependent as other animals, but if there is water available, then they will drink regularly if they can. Particularly... What's up, boy? They're definitely slowing down. I'm not sure if that's because they wanted to stop and have a drink, but she hasn't attempted any seduction of him in the last 20 minutes. Look at that neck. I can't see. Maybe it is a little bit swollen. Oh, beautiful. Now, we are watching the most incredible imagery. We really are spoilt in what we see, and I know that lots and lots of you have been taking the most beautiful screen grabs of what you're seeing on your screens. And a big thank you to all of you. Please share them with us. There's nothing that we love to see more than the beautiful images that we can bring to you all. And for those of you joining us for the first time, this is a live safari, so this is happening in real time right here. In this particular instance, Arathusa Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. And she's not going to let him out of her sight. Be interesting to know what she's thinking. Her body's urging her to follow after him. But leopards are solitary by nature. She might be tempted just to let him leave, but I don't think she's going to. I think she's going to trail along in his footsteps. He's also very full-bellied. Look at that round belly. Sometimes I get so distracted by how breathtakingly live they are that I actually forget that I'm talking to you all and sharing this with everybody. Just look at that. Now I am going to let the other vehicles move slightly ahead of me just because we have spent the most time with them and they're waiting to see a mating session. But we'll stick with them as well. Never fear, we will stay with them. We just have to show, sorry VM, a little bit of courtesy to the other vehicles. How cool is that? Pepper's drinking at the dam. How many other vehicles are responding?
Not sure, maybe one or two, not many.
Okay, cool. Go ahead if you want.
We won't stay long.
Yeah.
Stay longer if you want.
Cool, thank you. I'll just go ahead for now. I'm going to let them go ahead so that we can have as much time as possible with these two. I don't think they're going to go too far. I think they're going to go settle in the shade. Not with a full belly like that. It seems as though, Phil, you've been paying attention not only to the glorious imagery of what we're seeing, but also to the fact that there are birds calling. And you were wondering about the constant trill of the bird in the background. I have to be honest, I wasn't paying as close attention as I should be. But the answer is probably a crested barbet. They're the ones that have that very distinctive trill sound. Is also a Sterling's wren warbler calling. We still got her? There we go. We're not going to have the best image for now, the best view for now. There, she's initiating. Trying to seduce him. And succeeding. Okay, so it was once every 10 minutes, it's now once every 20 minutes, but that could have been because of the distraction of going to go and have a drink. And do not fear, we will get plenty of opportunities to view them, because it sounds as though from just chatting to one of the Simbabili guides, we will pretty much have the sighting to ourselves fairly soon. I mentioned before I wondered about studies that had been done into being left or right pawed, as it were. And I'm just going to shift forward ever so slightly. Take my foot off the brake before my leg goes into cramp. Now JJ Mo sent through some really interesting information. So not much out there in terms of big cats being left or right pawed, but there is interesting studies into domestic cats. And now I just have to try and remember which way around this was. There was 40% being left pawed, 50% right pawed, and 10% ambidextrous. So we could possibly suppose that although the numbers might not be exactly the same, there might be an even split. There might be something really similar. Oh, there's an elephant. Hello. Hello, elephant. You were a surprise. Well spotted, VM. Oh, this could be very interesting. Now, elephants chase leopards. They do. This one has smelt them, It might have been the elephant I heard earlier. I did hear one call. And he is going to go directly down into that drainage line. Oh boy. Sorry, he is right behind us, so I'm going to split my attention between leopards, you guys, and the elephant. The leopards are just there. We're probably about 30 meters away. What are you planning, mister? Don't chase my leopards away, please. Hey boy. Hey boy. Where are you going? What you going to do? Oh, okay. He smelt them, but I don't think he knows exactly where they are. I don't know. Now for the leopards, he doesn't pose any kind of serious threat. They are looking completely relaxed. They'll know that he's here, but they're not too bothered about it. So he's not a threat to them in any way. They're far too fast and agile. Even Tingana with his injured paw. It would not be a struggle for him to get away. Here we go. Where are you going, boy? He's got his head up. He's not a stressed elephant, but he's definitely on alert. He's obviously smelt them, and he's smelt the buffalo carcass. He's going straight down the road towards the other vehicles, not towards the leopards. And I think he's going to disappear. He's not going to go in there and chase them. Which is good news for us, because their response would just be to go straight into a thick bush and not come out. Unless they decided to climb a tree. Totally unconcerned. Okay, let me try and shuffle forward, and I don't think the view is going to be better from further ahead because there are two vehicles there, but I can shuffle forward and try and see. Also want to be careful of not disturbing the elephant too much. Let's go see if we can get a better view of these two. They're relaxed for now. It's probably going to be another few minutes until they continue with their occupation. Going to, I don't think, get a better view. Shall I go? Do we want to see Karula? Let's look at Karula. We spent quite a bit of time with Tingana. So let me see if I can get Karula into a better place. Not really. She's a bit sort of hidden. We might just have to wait our turn to get into the best spot. Sorry, I've got to take my little break. Forgot to do that. Flat out exhausted. And I don't think they're going to be up to too much over the next few moments. Next few minutes they're going to be quite happily resting in the shade there. He's up. Go forward. This does put him at a difficult angle, but he's got it perfectly. Moving off further into the drainage line. Tingana's disappearing off into this drainage line. Karula's going to follow very soon, but before we relocate ourselves, Joanne wanted to know what warbler I was hearing. I heard a Sterling's wren warbler that was calling. Here comes Karula. That question comes to us all the way from Arizona. Ooh, it's a very thick drainage line they're going into. Look at her face. Just following behind at a comfortable distance. Okay, let us get going and try and stay with them. We are going into a very thick drainage line with a lot of tambuti trees. And for new viewers, we are quite comfortable driving over certain saplings and certain trees. Might need to flop on. But tambutis are one of the ones to be avoided. They are ecologically very important, and they're always around these drainage lines in quite thick clumps, and they play a vital role in stopping serious soil erosion. I'm just going to shift out of the way to let the new arrival go ahead of us. And while I do that, we saw Tingana defecating earlier. And Donna Wan, you would like to know if dung beetles will also process the dung or the scat of predators. Have you got them there? Yeah. Okay. I'm just shifting so that the other vehicle can get through and get them that way. Oh. You gone, you out. Finish up. Cheers. I just heard them mating. So they're still at it. Oh, we seem to have quite a few vehicles all of a sudden. Just shift forward so we can see. I can see spots. We're just going to let the other vehicles go through and also have a moment with them. But yes, dung beetles do process predator scat. I think they probably prefer herbivore dung, just in terms of size and quantity and access. But that is why they play such a vital ecological role out here, because predator scat is full of all kinds of nasty things that dung beetles are capable of processing. I'm going to shift forward to see if I can get a better view for you all. But as I said, we've got to do it very carefully. Try and poke my nose in here. Can't see them, but you're thick in here. We can do it though, hey Vian. Making sure not to drive over any tanguotis, but also not do any damage to the camera. Got it? Well done, Vian. Sure. Okay, this isn't quite the view I was hoping for us to get. We can see a little bit of her face. And I'll just deal with one more question before I try and reposition. So Ashley, you were wondering, do leopards mate with other big cats or only leopards? And the answer is they can interbreed with other cats of the Panthera genre, but it doesn't happen in the wild. You don't really get hybrids as far as I know. If you do, it's an incredible fluke. And in terms of males killing cubs, yes, they will kill cubs of females that they don't think they've mated with and therefore are not the father of. So it does happen. In fact, probably 50% of all leopard cubs that are killed in their first year of life will be killed by a male leopard who is not their father or hasn't been mating with their mother. Now this is as good a view as we're going to get, and unfortunately we're also blocking the view of another safari vehicle. So for now, let's head across to James, who has found an elephant herd to show you. So let's head across to him for now, and I'll be back with you a little bit later.
Well, eventually, Chandra and I managed to find a herd of elephants. Very lovely to see them here. We did have tracks of Mvula, but we've yet to come up with them, but that doesn't really matter, given that you've been watching a magnificent scene of Karula with her consort Tingana. We've just come across these fellows, and they're eating gently through the woodland. I must say the temperature has gone from pretty hot to volcanic. It's now only probably about 6:45 in the morning, and I think we're sitting at about 32 or 33 degrees already. So pretty hot. 90 degrees Fahrenheit by 7 o'clock in the morning is pretty hot going. The elephants and all the animals will be spending as much time as they can in the shade and around water and around mud as well. These chaps are pretty close to us. Probably only about, I'd say 10 meters or so, 30 feet. And they're heading slowly. They're both sides of the road, and they seem to be heading slowly down towards the thick tree-lined areas along the dry riverbeds. There's an injury on the trunk that you're looking at now, a pink patch or a blister. I can't see it on the very tip. Henri, can we have a look at the very tip? I can't see it there. Do you see anything, Jean-Jacques? We'll keep looking there. I imagine that the youngsters like that will probably injure their trunks relatively regularly at this time of the, well, not this time of the year, any time, because they will, of course, Jean-Jacques, it doesn't astound me that this vehicle, despite the fact that we are parked on a 90-degree slope, will not roll back. Oh, they're big creatures. Elephant. Hello. Very sweet. And he's been eating those blue flowers that you can maybe see there called commelina. Keep going, shall I, Jean-Jacques?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've all experienced that feeling of you know, a really hot summer's day and the kind of atmosphere that it just listening, sorry. The kind of atmosphere that it creates, and there is definitely a feeling that the insects are thoroughly enjoying the heat. There's a huge number of cicadas out, but the rest of the mammals are all heading for the deep shade early on, and there's a sense of a real kind of not oppression, but you know, that kind of feeling where the energy levels are just sapped by the amount of heat that there is. And it's a lovely, well, it's an interesting feeling, especially around about this time of year when the expectation for rain is so huge. This is the mother of that youngster, still struggling a little bit with her conditioning. You can see she's got her hips sticking out and her shoulders also sticking out a bit. And I think that they will be looking forward to the time when they can eat some more grass. She's just picking at a relatively decent sized grass stalk. The grass is where they're going to get the majority of their nutrition at this time of year, and they'll be looking forward to that. I'm sure you can hear the cicadas going all around us. The odd ringneck dove, and like I said, the dawn chorus has been so much quieter this morning. Now, these elephants are walking along, having a bit of a meal. That's a huge cow that John Ray's filming there. I think it's a pretty big girl, that. And Deb, you want to know if they always walk and eat, or if sometimes they just go towards a certain area, or perhaps they stop and feed in certain areas. Deb, what they generally tend to do, I'm going to try and ease back a bit. What they generally do is, yes, they do walk and eat, but when they decide that they're going to water, when it's time for a drink, they stop eating and they absolutely just go straight for the water, and they don't stop to eat anymore. And that normally happens, the matriarch gives a command, and then they just head off straight to the water and they don't stop to eat anymore. And then sometimes, especially if there's a food source like marula fruits nearby, this little elephant is now only about 3 meters from us. He's right behind the bush. There he is. Right here. So Deb, if they're eating marula fruits or something like that around a fruiting tree, they won't move. They'll stop in one place for quite a while. Now he's playing with us as well. He's enjoying just kind of the entertainment of a day that's normally spent having to stuff his face with as much vegetation as he possibly can, which I think must be a fairly tiring exercise. And so selective even at this age. Hi little chap. He's so sweet. You can see the mud all over his face. That'll be from yesterday, when they would have gone near the mud and tried to use the mud to cool down a bit. We'll try and ease back again. It'd be worth spending some time with these elephants. They seem to be extremely confiding. Very happy to just let us be close by for now. Just don't want to block them from crossing the road. What I'll do, come on then, go on. She's just trying to get across the road behind us. I'll quickly get behind, in between them, and so that they'll walk past us in the front. amazing. We are now, I mean, those ones in front of me there. So we stop here so that they don't walk past us again. Maybe they can go around the front. And they're right so close by here, only about 3 meters away. What? Oh, sorry. Well, let's go across the leopards. They're apparently about to get a. Well, never mind. Back to the leopards.
And just to keep you updated on our position of the leopards. Oh, I forgot I was wearing red sunglasses. They are still in there. They've just mated again. We can hear them. But in terms of maneuvering and visibility, it's pretty much impossible to see them. I'm going to try shuffle forward so that we can get a visual, but I don't think we're going to. I'm not sure. They might have moved after that last mating session. Let's see. They're lying right up in that thick stuff. And I think making up for lost time. Mating sort of once every 15 minutes or so. Yeah, they're still there. They're in an even worse position now. It is very, very dense in there. I think short of a miracle in terms of placement. You try here. Hello, bush. Still got to be careful of the tambouti. I don't even know where they've gone. Can you see them? Have they moved? Yeah. Okay, let's try reposition. Sorry, watch out. Watch it! And whilst I try and find these leopards once again, let's head back across to James and his elephants, and I'll catch up with you very shortly.
We're just turning round, everybody. Instead of reversing and reversing and reversing, better idea to turn around so that we don't keep reversing into them. And we had the little one again so close by to us. It's wonderful. Sorry, there are so many trees. It's not easy to turn around here. Thankfully in the Land Rover. There we go. Alright, now we can ease gently down the road with them as opposed to reversing the whole time. Marvellous. They are such a relaxed herd of elephants, it's just very special. Okay. Oh, that cow's watching us there. So we'll just ease down the road. So they're very aware of us all the time, keeping an eye, and so what we want to do is maintain this level of trust where they've been able to just enjoy us and we've been able to enjoy them. The youngster's been having a bit of fun playing with us. And Jean-Andre was just mentioning while you were watching the leopards that some of them are streaming from their temporal glands. Now the one that's just walked across the road is an example of that. The temporal gland is a little gland between the eye and the ear on the same parallel line. Oh, sorry, there's more mating going on with the leopards. Let's go across to them. We'll stay with the elephants. They really don't seem to be able to get enough of each other, those leopards. See you just now. Just negotiating some tricky sand here. We may never get out again.
But we've made it. And we've found them once again. I'm going to stop here and just try and remember the... Now, it looked as though she was going to go and mate with him. She went walking up with purpose, so to speak, and then promptly lay down in the sand again. I think they might be exhausted, but just stick with us for a moment because I think they're going to go again fairly soon. Sure. That was quite the driving experience through the sand. And they have relaxed again. I wonder if she's going to get a... Now and again, that white tip of the tail is visible over the log. I think she's thinking about it. She's just feeling a little bit exhausted. Interesting how leopard mating works. With line mating, it's fairly regular. Sort of every 20 minutes or so they'll mate. But with leopards, they go through patches where they mate really, really quickly. Every 2 or 3 minutes, and then they go for a bit of a break for 20 minutes, and then they do it again. An interesting difference that I hadn't realized until I started working for WildEarth. But then I certainly haven't had the same opportunities, or as many opportunities as I have since I started working here, to watch leopards mating. And lots of things alarm calling in response to these big leopards' presence in the drainage line. And we're looking now at a hot and bothered Tingana. And Bino in Washington, you were wondering, with Tingana's injured paw, would he be disadvantaged in terms of defending himself against hyena or other leopards, or would adrenaline kick in and allow him to ignore the pain? And it depends on how serious the injury is, but for the most part I would say adrenaline would kick in. Hyenas are not too much, well, at least a solitary hyena is not too much of a threat to him. They could steal kills away from him, but I've seen Tingana sit with a hyena 20 meters from him and they just ignored each other. But yes, it puts him at a slight disadvantage. I still think adrenaline would kick in. I've seen animals with far worse injuries in circumstances where it wasn't even life or death, it was just concerning food. I saw a lioness cover 50 meters in a second or two, probably about 3 seconds, with one completely broken and useless third leg, so she was on 3 legs. Well, adrenaline definitely kicks in. They're much more resilient than we are. And somewhere off in the distance, a squirrel's just picked up on the fact that there are leopards and is shouting furiously. No, I think she's gone back to sleep for the moment. She did march towards him with such intent. Thought that she was going to go and mate with him. And a little bit later, if we do lose them or if we have to leave the sighting for other vehicles, then I will pop my head back towards the area where Tingana deposited his scat, and we'll go and collect some. And we'll see if my stomach holds out better than Brent's did yesterday. He's panting not just because it's hot, and it is hot, but he's also panting because of that enormously full belly. It's essentially pushed up and pushed his diaphragm up. It's an adaptation that all of these big cats have, and it allows them to essentially gorge themselves. Come on, you two. Are you exhausted now? I think we might be getting to the end of the Karula Tingana mating experience. And knowing poor old Tingana's luck, Kotile or Shadow is just waiting in the wings, waiting to take Karula's place, because that seems to be how his life's been going at the moment. And it's such an interesting thought to think this is where I very first saw Shadow. My very first sighting of her was just on the other side of this drainage line. And now we're sitting with her mother, mating with the same leopard that she's been mating with. These leopards certainly keep things interesting. We'll just have to wait and see. It should only be another few minutes before she starts her seduction dance again to try and get him interested in her. And I think that it will happen very, very soon. It's incredible just to be able to sit and spend an entire morning with these two incredibly beautiful creatures and not have to worry about being moved out of the way. It's one of the phenomenal things of the Sabi Sands, is that not only do we get to spend the time with them, but we also know that we're not disturbing them in any way. They're behaving exactly as they would if we weren't here. They're completely unconcerned. And there are two other vehicles with us, but everybody's respecting their space and their privacy. Well, maybe not their privacy, mightn't be respecting that, but definitely their personal space. So they've got plenty of area to move around in, and they're quite happy to just spend the day on the rest of the sand. I'm still wondering about that buffalo carcass and whether or not the buffalo tripped down into the drainage line, and that could have resulted in its death. It's a very, very steep part of the drainage line. I couldn't even really get the vehicle in there to show you all. It could have been killed by lions. It's a little bit too big, I think, to have been killed by these two. That would have been pretty much impossible. It might have been killed by lions. I think it actually slid down the drainage line, just by the way that it's positioned. It does happen. It's quite unusual. Animals are fairly sure-footed, but I think it is a possibility. It has provided a useful snack box for these two, which is why I think they've been hanging out here for the last 2 days. They don't have to concentrate on hunting. Every now and again just an ear flick to get rid of the flies. And I don't know, but I feel like Karula's patch of sand looks like some of the most comfortable I've seen. It's looking very, very relaxed. We could drive past this drainage line and never ever know that they were here. We just got very lucky. They're definitely slowing down though. It's interesting. I'd be curious to know. Yes, go away, bird. You're a bit behind the times. Shouting at the leopards. They've been here for a while. I'd be very curious to know the female. Oh, he's also gone flat. The females have that adaptation that they only come into estrus, or they only ovulate after repeated mating sessions. But I wonder for the male leopard how his sperm production can actually keep up with that, and if there's a way that they delay the release of the most viable sperm. Go away, bird, you really are a bit late. They've been here for a while. He's not visible to us. I can see him, but there's no way of him. Oh, they're coming. Oh, they're shouting at a little raptor. They're not shouting at the leopards. What was that? Oh yes. I wonder if there's a way that they can delay their sperm production so that the most viable ones are the ones used. Just an interesting thought. It has to be a way that it is timed to make it work. Interesting, I've never thought about that before. I think that these two have decided that they've got not much more to give for the moment. Quite exhausted. I'm sitting tucked away in quite a steep drainage line, so you'll have to forgive me because a question has come through, but there's no way I can get the name at the moment. But one of our viewers is wondering how old the leopards are. Now, Karula, I believe, is 11 years old, and Tingana must be getting close to 10 now, is around 9, 10. So they're both older leopards. Karula has spawned many generations of offspring, shifting around in position. Oh, her head's up. Does that mean she's going to... no. But the leopardess on the left is no stranger to this process. She's produced many litters of cubs and is an incredibly successful mother. And I spoke a little bit about her daughter Shadow. Her daughter Shadow is also nearly 9 years old. So they're not young. And leopards can live in really exceptional circumstances up to the age of sort of 15, 16. But for the most part, both of these are approaching the end of their, not the end of their lives, but they're definitely reaching a senior age. And for Tingana, his time as the dominant male in the area, of which he is definitely the dominant male, is probably going to come to an end fairly soon. The Anderson male is pushing for territory in here. He's still got another 2 years or so before he starts to struggle to upkeep what he needs to do. At the moment they are perfectly relaxed and very contented, and I think it's time to head back across to James and see what he's up to, and I will be back with you a little bit later.
So the elephants, everybody, have come through some thick bush. They moved suddenly or very quickly, and then they stopped, and it looked like they'd been given the command to come and eat something in a different area. So they all moved quickly, stopped, ate a bit. Now they've come across this drainage line, and really lovely pictures of them moving off in the direction slowly of the water at Buffelshoek Dam. Whether they'll get there or not, I'm not sure. But they definitely were given a command. They moved. Whoever it was, probably the matriarch, said, well, this is a good spot. They ate for a while, and now they've moved again. So we'll just gently sort of move up behind them here in the drainage line. Nice kind of vegetation for them on the fringes of this dry stream, because the water table is higher than it would be in other areas, and so the vegetation is greener, probably carries a bit more nutrients. So we speak a lot about these drainage lines, and possibly a term that is unfamiliar to many new viewers. It's a dry riverbed, and Anna Marie in Cherry Hill sounds like a good place to live. Anna Marie, you want to know if the drainage lines flow every rainy season. They don't flow so much as they might during a huge flood. So this particular one that we're in here is called the Umlulwati. It's the biggest one that there is at Djuma, and it's not a particularly big one for the area, but it will probably only flow during some very, very heavy rain. So it would have to be almost flooding. Now this tree that elephant is savaging there has clearly been savaged many times before, and it's a false thorn tree, an albizia, and elephants love them. Well, then why do you look at me like that? Now, I have been complaining a bit like a stuck pig about the heat this morning, and it's actually got quite nice with a bit of shade over our heads. And mobile Paddy, you want to know if I've noticed climate change here. Paddy, I don't think that it's possible to say that, no. I mean, I've only been here for 6 months. I still don't think, having been in the Lowveld for the last 15 years, I think that our human perception of what climate change is, especially in an area where the climate is so variable anyway, I think for us to start making judgments on whether we are noticing climate change or not would be premature and probably wildly speculative. So no, I wouldn't say I've noticed climate change. Has it got half a degree hotter here over the last 15 years? Has there been sort of 5 millimeters consistently less rain? I don't know. Certainly the one thing apparently that we will start to notice is a thickening of the bush, because the grasses don't cope with CO2 nearly as well as the trees do, the woody plants, and so the woody plants will get thicker as the CO2 levels in the atmosphere go up. So while that might not have to do specifically with climate change, certainly the amount of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere will make a difference to how thick the bush has got. And I mean, I don't think I've noticed an enormous difference. There's definitely always seems to be a trend in this area, though, towards thickening of bush. So, interesting one. Mobile Paddy, I think it's quite possible. And then Gal, you want to know how hot it gets here in summer. Well, it gets probably to about 41, 42 degrees fairly regularly in January and February. But it will go up to 45 sometimes. Now, 45 degrees Celsius, if I'm not mistaken, puts you at about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is it's beastly hot. You can't move in heat like that. But it's not like a desert where it'll do that every day. It'll get like that for a few days in a row, and then there'll normally be a big rain storm. Little starling there, Jean-Gray. We're just going to move across to a beautiful picture of a Cape glossy starling, or greater blue-eared glossy starling. Can't tell from this distance. Look at that. Look at his lovely golden eye. Just enjoying hanging around with the elephants, picking up the invertebrates that it kicks up, or they kick up. Isn't that lovely? Now the elephants are melting off towards the western side of this dry riverbed, so we'll carry on up it, and I think we'll try and pick them up on the other side. Keep going. I'll drive relatively fast to get around towards them. I suppose we could just turn around, or we could do some 4x4ing up there. Keep going. Got to be a little bit circumspect about driving up and down the banks here. I don't think it makes a huge difference around this particular area because there isn't a lot of rain. But in the major riverbeds, you want to be quite careful about driving up and down the banks and creating possible avenues for erosion, water gullies. But there's a little exit over here, and we'll pop up onto the bank and drive back down south towards. Marvellous. It was easier than I thought. I think they are making their way slowly towards Juma Dam. Maybe they'll get there by the time game drive comes to an end. That's not the whole herd. Certainly we've seen more than that, don't you think, Jean-Ray? But they're moving in a very sweet little line, and the big matriarch at the back providing security. We'll just go around them. And often in the height of the wet season, there's a pan up here. There's like a pond full of mud, and we'll have enough water in them for them to throw mud about themselves. Where the rest of the herd is behind us. So we'll go towards that pan, and I think we'll wait there. It's so nice to be able to spend time with animals, and I say this quite a lot, but with animals that are not they're not kind of affected by us, they're not worried by us, and they just get on with their lives while we watch, which is the best way to observe the wild. What we want to try and do is avoid changing their behavior at all. See what they do from here. So quite a nice order of things there. You can see that the cow that you're looking at and the one behind are kind of teenagers, if you like, of this tiny little herd. I'm sure that there are others around. In fact, the one in front is an adult, and then I'm sure that's the matriarch bringing up the rear, just making sure that everyone is in line and that there's sufficient security. Despite the fact that they have hardly anything in the way of predators out here, they are extremely careful, extremely cautious about how they move, always very aware of the little ones, where they are in the herd, and making sure that everyone is comfortable and walking in the right direction, not stepping out of line. See, that is just a wonderful picture. Adult cow in front, younger than the matriarch at the back. Be a little bit faster and just get around the front of them. Walking nice and slowly so that the little ones can keep up. Oh, there are a whole lot more in front of us. That's the rest of the same herd, to be honest. Let's just go around here. We'll do a U-turn. See them coming up. There they come. So we'll just see if they don't come. If they go into that thick bush, it would be extremely disingenuous of them to do that after I've made the effort to come here. Here they come now. Quite interesting that, I think, is that I've parked quite a distance from them. I wonder if they aren't no, look, they're running now towards this other group. There's another group to the left of your screen, all sitting, just feeding quietly. Now there will be communication between that herd on our left and the one that we're watching now. Be interesting to see what format that communication takes. So now the matriarch has come to the outside of the herd. She's put herself between them and the rest of her little herd. But she's allowing the little ones to go forward. But maybe they're excited about greeting this other herd. The other herd has not moved at all. I find this absolutely fascinating. I think there's so much. If you sit and watch elephants for long enough, you'll learn some astonishing new things. They're bypassing this other herd. Now there we go. Now they're going to go in, moving slower now to say hello. Get a bit closer. Of elephants in here. They're all kind of melting now. They're not going towards the water. They've all just kind of met up with this other group and they've started feeding again. Lazily walking into the bush. We'll go a little bit forward. It is very thick in there. I don't necessarily want to go bashing through there after them. Not after they've been so good to us. Jandre has just spotted something quite interesting. A little dung beetle. There'll be lots around now after the rain that we've had. Rolling her ball, or his ball. Let's try and go to the side of him. Is that far enough away? Yeah. Get in there. So now watch. You can see him pushing along, and then he'll climb up on top, orientate himself, and keep pushing. How they navigate, we think, is to do with the mites that live on their faces. And he'll be pushing that dung ball, he or she, probably a she, I think that one, that's probably the egg ball, pushing it towards a hole, and she'll dig that into a hole. There'll be an egg inside it, and then she'll buzz off and find another piece of dung and go and repeat the process ad nauseum until the end of the summer. Isn't that great? Every time it bobbles around a bit, she gets on top, orientates herself, and figures it out. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dung balls, or thousands actually, must be buried beneath the ground that we walk on every day. And that'll only be an adult dung beetle by next year. Alright, what we'll do is we'll drive back along. There's a road there. It's very thick in here, and I'm not going to go and push these elephants. They've been so good to us. So let's go around that side, see if we don't see them again. Otherwise we'll press on towards the water. I think even if we don't manage to catch them drinking, keep your eye on the Juma Dam cam for the duration of the day. I think that they will be up there eventually to have a drink. In here a little bit without making too much noise. Driving over some wild sage and some ossamum herbs, so there's a lovely kind of fragrant herby smell in the air. And the ellies are all now stationary in this thick bush. Now I wonder if this isn't a kind of meeting place to eat a bit, perhaps allow the youngsters a bit of time. Like I say, tremendously aware always of where the babies are, their condition, how tired they are. And sneak in a little bit. We should wait here. Let's go over there, Jean, just a little bit to the left. You can hear the almost deafening call of the cicadas. It's such a lovely sound of the summer. Now, as our microphones here are pretty sensitive in many ways, and they're also what we call directional microphones. Now, Tammy in Seattle, you want to know if there's a cicada sitting on one of the microphones. No, Tammy, there isn't a microphone the cicada sitting on the microphone. I know sometimes it does sound like that. As soon as the microphones point towards where a cicada is, in a vague direction, then it will result in your head starting to reverberate quite strongly from the sound of the cicadas. But no, there isn't one on the microphone, but it is very loud out here. Even where I'm sitting, it's extremely loud. She's watching us, having a bit of a smell, because the wind is blowing. It sort of switched to behind us, and now it's blowing. Sorry, switched to from my left-hand side. So pretty much in front of your screen, switched towards her, and so she lifted her trunk, she smelt us and lifted it up again and just checked what we were. She can see us, of course, but their smells do make a big difference to them. Ooh, look at this. Now, Nikki, I've made a huge amount about how these elephants are going to go and have a drink at some stage of the day, and you want to know how far they can smell water from. Nikki, I don't know exactly. I've heard up to 50 kilometers. I think more important than that, though, is that they don't necessarily smell so much as know where the water is, and that's the importance of having a matriarch who knows what's going on in the herd. She will be able to tell them, they will know, and she will teach the others where the water is and where at the best times of year the best water is to be found. So I don't think it's so much a case of smelling. I think they can probably also follow storms, much like the wildebeest do. And I'm not sure that we know whether they smell water at all, necessarily. I know that there is a lot written about the fact that they smell water, and I just wonder if that isn't a kind of assumption based on the fact that they seem to be able to find water where we are unable to. I think it's got a lot to do with the knowledge that's passed down from generation to generation in an elephant society. I think that's got a huge amount to do with it. Lots of nice shade here. I found the most gorgeous moth in the footwell. That's why there was so much noise around the vehicle, but I've now lost him. It's called a burnet. Beautiful colours. Never mind, I'm sure there will be others. They like to eat the zebrawood flowers. Yeah, you can feel a bit of a breeze coming up, which is quite nice. Cooling down the air. Now you can see the amount of vegetation that this one elephant cow is eating. She's probably about 20 years old. Now, all of the 15 or so thousand elephants in the Kruger National Park, you can imagine how much they eat. And you can therefore see what a massively important part of any ecological system they are. Take them out and the vegetation will change completely. Bring them back in and likewise the vegetation will change completely. And we as human beings are very quick to pass judgments, or value judgments on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. And you know, elephants come into an area and they smash a lot of the big trees, and we say, oh well, that's bad, they're taking out all the big trees. Well, is it bad? We don't know. Certainly in prehistory they would have come into areas, and in times of plenty they would definitely have denuded areas of vegetation, and then when the droughts came they'd have moved off and those areas would have recovered. But so often, because we're in kind of tourist areas, we can't really afford to think long term like that. We can't afford to think that the Sabi Sands perhaps will be a place of plenty for 20 years and then for 20 years after that it'll be recovering again, because obviously that's much too long to create some kind of a human business from, and without business out here there's not much in the way of money to protect these great areas. So it's a constant debate and a constant worry as to what should we do, or should we just leave things the way they are. Many heated debates from many different quarters. Now this is one elephant feeding more than 15,000 in the Kruger Park at the moment. Look at that, isn't that amazing? She's loving this tree. Let's see what tree it is. It looks like a spike-thorn tree, and I didn't think that they spent a great deal of time eating them, but she's certainly devouring this one. There is some zebra wood in there, which would explain the burnet moth, but she's eating some spike-thorn. Some gymnosporia. You wouldn't like gymnosporia for breakfast, would you, Jean-Andre?
Rather.
No. Not delicious. And just like I say, so confiding, so completely happy to have us sitting next to her, which is wonderful. But watching us all the time, keeping a beady eye to make sure that we aren't about to create some sort of consternation for her or her little one. Okay, they're now all headed into the pretty thick bush where I think they're going to rest in the shade, so I don't think we're going to spend too much longer here. But just before we leave, Jeffrey in Texas, a nice question. When a bull comes along to mate with one of the females and she's an estrus, what kind of control does the matriarch have over how the bull mates or who he mates with? None is the answer. When she's an estrus, when a female's an estrus and she's selected the bull that she wants to mate with, there's not much that can be done by anyone. And the bulls are so much bigger than the cows that if the matriarch should challenge him physically, she'd get herself into big trouble. And it is a cause of death amongst elephants that bulls that are in must, if they get challenged physically, they can be pretty terrifying animals. So not much control at all. That said, hear that lovely noise of them singing. That said, there is obviously a huge amount of communication that we don't hear and we don't understand. Maybe she says something that he's a good one, no, leave him alone, he's a rogue, he won't stick around. Maybe she says things like that to the females before they breed, but we don't really know. Nice one, thank you, Jeffrey. Let us press on from this vicinity. We'll go off towards Treehouse Dam and see what's off that way. Jean-Ray was just watching a gymnogene or African harrier hawk fly overhead. I don't think we'll follow up on him. We'll have to drive very fast indeed and possibly fly. What a very special elephant sighting that was. Now, in the United States, you have various species of cicadas, some of which only come out of the earth after 17 years in their instar or immature state. I didn't know, Anna Marie, that they only came out every 13 or 17 years. I sort of assumed that you had some like we have here that will come out every year. There are a few here that come out, I think, after 7 years or so, but every year there will be some cicadas, and most of them spend only a year underground. So eggs will be laid at the end of this summer season. They'll spend a year underground and pop out again next year. So that's quite common. There are one or two that spend a few years underground here, but there'll always be the noise of cicadas. So we don't ever have years where there aren't any. Possibly years where there are more than others. I can seldom remember a year where they were so consistent and so numerous as they are now. I think that's quite interesting. I'm not sure why that should be. Right, let's go back to Jamie and see how her leopards are doing, and I will see you possibly at Treehouse Dam.
Karula. Welcome back. As you can see, we have repositioned to get a slightly different view of these two. Oh, Karula, what are you thinking? Not much. She might get up to try and seduce him. The back of her neck is looking seriously scruffy from his attentions. Now, I do know that many of you are very keen to get close to see Tingana's paw. It's a little bit tricky in the thick sand without actually putting stress on them, so we'll wait and see if they decide to move. Although by the looks of things, I'm not sure he's going to. Ah, there's more elephants coming through. The herd from earlier. That was well timed. Hello, ellies. Nice big herd, I think, making their way towards Red Dam. We're just on the other side of the dam wall. So far there have been no incidents between leopard and elephant. But I know that you've had some very, very interesting conversations with James about the dynamics of elephant herds. Oh, this could be interesting. She spotted them. She's going, I think she's thinking about chasing them. Karula's up. She's not having any of it. No, and she's back down again. This female's watching. Yeah. A head swing. You can see that side-to-side motion of the head and the ears. She's unsettled, but I think she's going to leave it. Displacement behavior. She's feeding, but she's not really feeding. It's just a sign of discomfort. Okay. Well, she's settled now. She's decided that the leopards are not in any way a threat. And how often do you get to see mating leopards and an elephant herd in one screenshot? It's been quite the exciting morning. I mentioned earlier, but for viewers who are tuning in a little bit later, it's definitely not unheard of for elephants to chase leopards, and I'm sure it's something that the viewers remember seeing happen to Karula. I've heard stories about that famous incident, so it would not be impossible for that female to go for them. But they look perfectly relaxed. They know that they can escape the elephant herd far quicker than the ellies can move towards them. Poor Tingana. His paw looks fine. Sorry, Vim, just thinking aloud, but he doesn't look too serious. Very full bellies. And there's our beautiful Karula. Now they're quite happily sitting in this drainage line. And it's not as steep as some of the drainage lines that we might see, but quite often in the middle of the heat of the day they'll actually move out of the drainage lines if they're too steep, because they need the breeze to keep them cool. But one thing you may have seen your domestic dogs or cats do is dig down into the sand to find a nice cool spot. And Laurie, you're watching all the way from Wisconsin, you were wondering if leopards or lions will do the same thing, if they will dig down to find cooler soil. And they will do. I have seen them do it. And they'll also utilize human habitation, so that pump house that we drove past, old abandoned buildings they'll often move into. And it's also something that not only leopards and lions do, but wild dogs will do, and hyenas will dig down a little bit into the sand to find the cooler levels that haven't been warmed up by the sun. And a friend of mine, actually, just talking about the different shade that animals will utilize. A friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday from the reserve I used to work at of an old abandoned pump house. The reserve is very old. It used to be a farm, or it used to be different farms, and so there's some old abandoned pump house buildings, and you can just see in the dingy depths of this brick building there's just a lioness and her cub peeking out of the gloom. Amazing picture. We're sitting with two very fat, very contented leopards, and the story behind finding them is quite an interesting one, and it might explain or might answer Sherry's question a little bit clearly. So this morning, VM and I were driving to where Tingana and Karula were last seen yesterday afternoon on the sunset safari, and we stopped because we could smell something rotten, sort of dead, definitely a carcass smell. So I went for a bit of a walk and I stuck my nose into the drainage line, and there was a full buffalo carcass. And I think because of where it is, my suggestion is that it has actually fallen into the drainage line. I don't think it was killed there by lions or by hyenas. It hasn't been dragged away, possibly because of the position it's in. And I strongly suspect that is what these two have been doing for the last 2 days. So Sherry, that enormously big belly that you can see all the way from Los Angeles is in fact the result of the buffalo carcass that's sitting there. Now we're on the western side, the northwestern side of Red Dam. The carcass is about 150 meters to the east of us along the drainage line in the opposite direction. So they've moved away from it for now. When I first found them, they were maybe 70 meters from it. So they've moved a little bit further along. And it was a very interesting find. And the minute I stopped to smell and investigate, I heard them in their mating sounds. They are definitely slowing down. Not sure whether it's because they're coming to the end or whether because it's just very hot and very humid. And whilst we wait for them to get their act together, we shall go to our third member of the Big Five for the day, and we'll head across to James. I'll catch up with you a little bit later.
I'm going to stop here, is that right? So we did actually find the Jim Jean parked just behind some buffaloes that are sitting in the mud, and there were some warthogs here too that came down clearly to try and get into the mud action, but I think that they found the last remaining patch of mud in the area thoroughly occupied by these large buffalo bulls. Now, isn't that magnificent? That is an African harrier hawk. Used to be called gymnogene, which I think is a far more attractive name. Something about the French names that are just a little more attractive than many of the English ones. And I don't know what it's eating there. They're normally stealing bird chicks from their nests, but perhaps picking up some carrion in the way of catfish, or there will still be a couple of maggots, well, not a couple, probably hundreds of maggots on the catfish carcasses, and maybe that's what he's eating. Very nutritious stuff, or maggots. I wouldn't suggest you have them for breakfast, but yes, certainly there are many around here. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's a big bird. That probably about, I'd say that's about a foot long. Maybe a bit, no, more than that. Probably about a foot and a half long, from tip to tail to head, top to toe. Now the face of that gymnogene is quite interesting. I don't know how close in we can get. You can get a little bit of the pink tinge that's on it there. Now, it's normally yellow, which it is sort of now, but it has got a bit of a rosy tint to it. And that rosy tint is born of the fact that that gymnogene is probably about to come into kind of mating plumage. And their faces turn red when they're mating. Now suddenly it looks very yellow again. And it will be bombed. It was being bombed by some fork-tailed drongos when it came in here. The starlings are kind of putting up with it. But the drongos do not tolerate the presence of any raptors. That face is changing colour all the time, you know. That's quite interesting. It's now very rosy. Delicate legs. I don't want to go any closer, I'm afraid, because I think he will fly away. And the buffalo are also really enjoying their mud. They've stood up now. I'm not sure why. They seem to be ornithological buffalo. I think they're enjoying the presence of the gymnogene as well. They seem to be watching it with quite a lot of interest. Perhaps you can imagine an old man's club of aging ornithologists. You don't see that one over there, old chap? Yes, I do, but my eye's not quite what they used to be. What do you think it is? There, it looks like an African harrier hawk. Yes, I agree. Pink head? Yes, breeding season. And then they'll probably sit down again in the mud. Sorry, excuse me, I think the sun's getting to my head. That is definitely the impression that the buffalo give me when I look at them. Just enjoy the sighting of gymnogene. We don't often get them standing so beautifully confidingly. Hear the call of the emerald spotted wood dove. There's a starling behind the African harrier hawk, aka gymnogene. Let's just quickly have a look at the buffalo bulls, just so that everyone doesn't think I'm completely insane. There they are, and they've been sitting there watching the gymnogene since he sat down. Alright, you can go back to the bird now. So the life of a buffalo bull, we'll just keep watching that gymnogene. I do often so wonder what's going through their heads. There we go, flying off. We'll go. And as we pull out from the gym machine, so the buffalo sat down, and that's definitely what they were doing. They were watching the bird. Some light entertainment for their days of retirement. One of the birds we do see at dams, and indeed we saw probably 20 of them today, Savannah in Georgia, or Georgia in Savannah, I think it's the other way around. You want to know if we get woolly-necked storks here? Absolutely we do, especially this time of year. There have been quite a lot at Buffelshoek Dam of late. Right, let's go a little bit closer. That is a pathetic little piece of mud that that poor buffalo is trying to cover himself in. There'll be a little bit of coof, but not a huge amount. We'll just roll gently forward. I would say a particularly stupid place to be lying, given the exposure to the November African sun, but I'm not a buffalo. And that black skin must get extremely hot. Right, quickly across to the leopards, they're mating. Bye-bye.
And Karula is doing her dance again. Some very soft growling. Tingana is less than impressed, but she's going to lie down. Okay, well, that was fairly unexpected. They're clearly getting to the end of their mating session. Both of them are a little bit exhausted. She's quite half-hearted in her efforts of seduction. Definitely not as serious as she was when we saw them this morning. She's completely stopped again. There's still some soft growling coming from that area. I'm not sure if it's because they're in each other's space, but I think the thought of mating has obviously exhausted Tingana. He just can't face it. Well, that was definitely not how I expected that to go. She's still thinking about it. She's still rumbling. She's purring. It's very soft, very faint. I'll try and be quiet, but I don't think you'll be able to pick it up. Here she goes again. You have to hand it to her. Must be difficult to muster up the enthusiasm, but she is trying. Come on, girl. She's still purring. She still might initiate. It's a very, very low sound. I can barely hear it. But she's purring just like your house cats at home might do. You can see she's poised between trying to convince him once again and just lying in the sand and having a break. And Tingana's lying there looking a little bit like he swallowed a beach ball, or at the very least a balloon. You can understand his reluctance. But the two of you have such good genetics, you need to get your acts together. I think she's relaxed again. She's stopped purring. She turned her head away. The situation didn't play out quite as expected, but But I do think we're coming to the end of this. This is probably our last opportunity to have a chance to see this. All of the factors have played out so well. We got so lucky. If that buffalo wasn't dead in the drainage line just a couple of 100 meters up away from us, then there's a good chance that these two would have moved away. And the way that the soil is at the moment, it would have been so difficult to track them. So we really have been lucky in terms of what we've been able to see. And we must just enjoy this last morning, because I think that quite possibly by this afternoon, or definitely by tonight, these two will be finished with their shenanigans and go off in their separate ways. Because of course leopards are solitary creatures, and Tingana has got lots of territorial marking to go and catch up on, and Karula most likely will return back onto either Djuma or Buffelshoek. I'm still keeping an eye on her, because every now and again I hear a purr. It's that preceding moment to the mating, but I don't think she's going to try anymore. She's quite thoroughly turned her back on him, having been snubbed. She's now turned her head away completely. And it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I sympathize with them because I'm already layering on the sunblock. It's going to be a scorching day. With humidity as high as it is, who can really blame them? One thing that leopards do not do, especially towards the end, their body language doesn't convey an enormous sense of affection. And I don't think it's with any regret that these pairings come to an end. And this dappled kind of light is exactly what their camouflage was built for. They could walk 20 meters away from us along the drainage line wall and completely disappear. It was a good effort, Karula, but it was a little bit half-hearted, a little bit unenthusiastic. And it's interesting comparing Tingana and Mbula. I've only just, for the first time yesterday, seen Mbula, and it was through some bushes. It was not the clearest sighting I've ever had, but I was very excited to see him for the first time. But Tingana is definitely, he's enormous. I mean, we're sitting watching these two, and we've got them lying next to each other, and you can see how distinct that size difference is. And not only is he enormous, but he's definitely gorged himself far more than she has. She's full, she's round-bellied, but not looking quite like Tingana's looking. And I don't know whether that's because her mind was on other things, or whether he was being a little bit protective over the carcass and not letting her too close. I don't think so, though. Generally, mating leopards, or leopards that are very familiar with each other, will quite happily sit and share food, especially a meal as large as a dead buffalo. She's shifted to get more comfortable. I think she's going to put her head down fairly soon. Yeah, still shifting around with that scruffy back of her neck. There's still no further conclusions as to how he's injured his paw or what the problem is. I can't see if that's a leaf. I think it's a leaf that I'm seeing. Oops. Yeah, it is a leaf. It doesn't look hugely swollen. It doesn't look any bigger than the other one. Not at the joints. And I'm fairly certain that the way that the wind is blowing and the position they're in, they're going to spend the rest of the day here. They've got a bit of a draft. It's not too hot, but it is starting to be baking if you're sitting in the sun like we are. I will call your attention back to us as soon as something else happens. I'm hoping we might get one last view of them mating before the end of the sunrise safari, even if they do seem a little bit reluctant at the moment. But for now, let's head back across to James, who is exploring out and about, and I will catch up with you in just a few moments.
So we have left those beefaloes to themselves, mainly because to sit there and film them was becoming deeply unpleasant as we were sitting in the sun. Very, very hot it is. So we're just going to pop around here and probably head towards the Duma Dam and see if those elephants aren't making their way there. I've no doubt that you would have told us if they were there, but they might be on their way there. It is certainly that relieving breeze and bank of clouds that came up from the east has ceased its march over the sky and retreated under the blaze of this November sun. The other thing to do, of course, on a hot day like this is to find something in the way of fruits to eat. And I was just thinking to myself, actually, what Chris Rose has just asked, woodland kingfishers, where are they? There was a report of one at the Duma Dam Cam the other day. I'm suspicious of this report because I haven't heard one, and I certainly haven't seen one. And maybe it was just a very blue version of a brown-hooded kingfisher. But I haven't seen a woodland kingfisher yet, Chris Rose. I've been looking carefully. Obviously, when they start to call, we'll know that they're around. And I think it's pretty late that they're not here. So I think it's really quite interesting. Questions from Miss Lynn in North Carolina. I'm afraid the radio broke up before I could get your question though, so Tara will send it through again and I will get to it. Now you were watching those oxpeckers sitting on the buffalo earlier. One of them looked like it was about to nest in the nose of one of those bulls. They don't in fact nest in the orifice of the animals on which they live. They nest in hollow tree holes, many hollow tree holes around here. Remember, lots of trees get killed by elephants through debarking, and then what happens, the wood borer beetles get into them, and then the fungus gets in, and the hardwood gets very soft. The woodpeckers go and drill holes, the barbets go and drill holes, and there's the naturally occurring holes. And many things go to live in those holes, and one of which is the oxpecker. They like to live in tree holes. And what they do, Miss Lynn, is that they take a lot of hair from the animals on which they eat, from which they take ticks, and they go and line the nest with that hair, and they lay their eggs on the hair, and the chicks then have a very comfortable introduction to the world, unlike many of the raptors, which have to hang on to very uncomfortable thorny sticks as soon as they're born. Wind swirling around the place, so maybe there's a bit of drop in barometric pressure, and that might bring in some weather, but there's not much predicted. I'm looking for some fruit first to eat. We had a bit of a taste of some Bushman's grape the other day, which Brian and I decided tasted like a roast chicken dinner with apple crumble for pudding all in one. So I'm trying desperately to find some for Jean-Dre because I'm sure he'd be delighted by the taste of some. There we go. Stand by, everyone. I'll be back now. Don't go anywhere. Oh. No, that's a very scatty one, Jean-Ray. I'm not going to give you that. No, this particular tree has already probably handed its fruits to the birds. Tiny little red, looks like a little red sort of raisin. But unfortunately that one has been taken. Right, plug myself back in. There we go. On we forge. Other fruits that are going to come out, but mainly only next year, are the marulas, of course, the white berries and the white berry bushes, the worry bushes will also make nice little red fruits to eat, but it's all for very limited periods, you know, so fruit eating out here, and in fact it's quite interesting. You know, we had a question yesterday about diabetes and whether animals get it, and I said no, they don't, because they don't have lifestyle diseases like us. And another interesting thing is that the fruit out here, I think, is as natural as you can get it. So a lot of the fruit that we buy in the stores has been selectively bred, if not genetically modified, to produce as much sugar as possible. Now the fruits out here tend to be not nearly as sweet as you'd buy commercially available fruit, and that's because naturally fruits don't have as much sugar in them as our fruits. And the other thing is that they came in such limited quantities. So for say the month of February around this particular area, the people of prehistory would have gorged themselves on marula fruits, but for the rest of the year no sugar in the diet. So I think it's quite interesting. Now of course, with the way that we live, we have sugar in our diet all the time, and we have lots of fruits in our diet all the time, and often very sweet ones. And that just wasn't the case for pre-humans of this area, in fact in any area of the world. Oh dear, our way has been blocked by an elephant. We'll have to go round. We'll have to wait for Scott Dyson's return. His giant muscles, he'll be able to move that tree, I'm sure. Maybe not even he. Well, Jean-Andre, with your calves, you might be able to kick that tree out of the way. Now we're heading towards the Juma Dam, hoping that there might be some elephants there having a drink. And Donna Wan, you've obviously watched this before, and you've seen the elephants drinking directly out of the pipe that pumps that little pan. And you say, do I think it's possible that they can smell it's cleaner? Yes, I'm sure they can smell it's cleaner in the same way that you and I could. They've definitely got more sensitive noses than we do. But if you go and stick your nose next to dirty water versus clean water, you can absolutely smell the difference. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. I'm also sure that the taste of it has something to do with it. The stuff straight out of the pipe will taste a lot better than the stuff that's had buffalo going to the loo in it. Here they are. Can you believe it? Well, that ain't no elephant cow. That is a substantial bull. And he's going to have a drink. Good news. That's a big boy, that. A big fella. Watching us quite carefully. He's just being ornery now. There's absolutely no need for him to turn and face us like that. A long way from him, about 30 or 50 meters. So why he's doing that, I don't know. He's not in must. I can't see any dripping coming between his legs. Maybe he's just irritated because he's hot and bothered. Watching it. You see how he turns his head like that? We'll do it to the other side now. There we go. That's him looking at us. We'll go around the side, see if he doesn't go to the water. Maybe he's just really thirsty and a bit irritated. Completely different reaction than the cows and the youngsters had to us. So we're hopefully going to go and watch that elephant having a drink at the waterhole, and as many of you will know, elephants have 6 sets of molars in their lives, and when the last one goes, they starve to death generally. And Maggie in Western Australia, you want to know how that mechanism works. How do they lose their teeth? Much like, well, I suppose like you've said, like the sharks, the teeth grow from the back of the mouth, and they grow into the front of the jaw, and then as they grind down, they kind of fall out, if you like. Well, they don't fall out, they're eventually pushed out from behind, but they normally have ground down by the time they're pushed out. And they've only got they've got 6 sets of molars, but they've actually only got 2 or one working molar in each part of the jaw at any one time. There's the elephant in front of us, heading towards the water. He's watching us. He doesn't like the groaning and grunting that Wendy makes when she goes over 1 or 2 little bumps. And he's now sneaked into the bush. Gently make our way forward, and I'll pull off the road here. There he is. Just see him walking through the bush over there. He's smelling us. He's not particularly happy to have us with him. I think he's just going to have to suffer it though, because I don't see anything that is threatening to him. He's a fully grown, mature bull. We'll just try and get to a position where we can watch him come out of the bush and perhaps have a drink. Maybe we'll stop here, Jean-Andre, for the shade. What do you think? Windy. I've lost my earpiece. Hang on. There we go. There we go. Jean-Andre and I are now in a spot of shade, and here comes the big bull elephant. I haven't seen a huge number of bulls out here. Often just herds, and then every so often, I mean, we had, oh, there's another one right there. I didn't see. You may have heard that crunch, and you saw him lift his head up and look. I think there's another one sitting close to the back side of the Djuma Dam wall. There he goes. He's definitely going to the water. Alright, John-Ray, let's go and ride to the next piece of shade as quickly as we can, so as to not desiccate completely. Get a view of all of them. He's now picking up some sand and throwing it on himself. Oh, there's a whole lot of mud there. That's quite nice. Let's go and watch that. Any good to you, or do you want to get a little bit closer? Right. You can see him covering himself, lathering himself in mud. So it's basically like splashing yourself with cooling water. I think that was a little bonus for him before he goes off to have his drink. I heard some crashing of branches, I think below the dam wall, probably in the shade of the drainage line there. There he goes. Okay, let's move a little bit to the side. I walk straight in front of the Djuma Dam camp. Hold on everyone, a couple of bumps. Alright, hungry? Here he comes, ponderously up towards the water. The only water now, certainly the only clean water for many miles. Ooh, and there's a lizard there. You see the big water lizard? Trying right in front of the pan, just where the inlet is. There we go. A water monitor who's about to come up against, I think, something he won't tally with. There you can see them both. Reptile and mammal. Look at the wonderful way they walk. He's looking at us, definitely. A little bit worried about what our intentions are. And every so often the wind does switch from behind us, so he'll get a whiff of us. And it's always interesting to me, and I don't quite understand it, but definitely the smell of us affects them far more than the sight of us. There we go. And elephants are very adept and enthusiastic swimmers when they have enough water to do that in. And so when they don't, they'll spray water on their bodies. And as Ellies has said, and for those who don't know, these elephants do tend to dig the pipes up that feed these little pans. And Ellies, you're right. I think the person who does the maintenance of the pipes, a fellow called Jim Reeves, believe it or not, that's his first name, Jim Reeves Corsa. He's a Shangaan fellow named Jim Reeves, and he's the guy who does the pipe repair maintenance, and he does shake his head when asked about his opinion on elephants. That's wonderful. So he can drink this. Often elephants choose not to drink this kind of water, but he'll certainly be able to drink it. And I think it's quite interesting that he's spraying his ears, which will then further cool the blood that's going to his brain. Nice breeze, so that extra moisture on his skin will definitely make him feel a little bit cooler. But I think it's going to be, like I said earlier, a scorching day. You've got a black cuckoo calling in the background. Otherwise the birds have gone into the deep shade. not drinking any of it at the moment, just covering his body in kind of the dirty stuff at the bottom with the mud in it. So our zoomies, Siberia Zoomy and Teresa, I think you have spotted another elephant just down below the dam wall, if I'm not mistaken, and you say he's heading towards Mvubu Road, which is the road just behind where that elephant is sitting, and maybe heading towards this water as well. So thank you for that update. Just a quick one for you. While we're orientated here with, if you ever see an animal coming past here and you're watching the Djuma Dam cam, to the left of your screen now is due north, to the right is due south, straight over that elephant's back. Okay, if you can get an idea of this picture, straight over that elephant's back is east, which makes straight over the back of your screen west. So that elephant is now, test yourselves everybody, guess which direction he's going. He's going at the moment due north, and I think he's probably going to turn northeast towards Mvubu Road. Mvubu Road is the road to the east of this dam that runs parallel with the Djuma Dam. Right, I think we will let that elephant melt into the drainage line. I think he's going to go and find some marvelous shade to sit in. And we're going to hand you back to Jamie. Before we do that, a big thank you to all of you for your contributions and comments for the morning. It's been a very hot, kind of soporific, but a fascinating time with the elephants. Thank you, Jean-Dre. There is Jean-Dre and his enormous calves. We'll take them, try and get Wendy to take them back to camp. Thank you to Tara and Jerry, and we'll hand you back to Jamie and VM now for the last little bit. Stay safe and happy wherever you are. Sleep well if you're in the Americas, and we'll see you later today at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.
And we finish off our sunrise safari with an absolutely exhausted pair of leopards. Tingana is slowly dribbling on himself, we think in theory as an attempt to make himself less attractive to Karula, and it seems to be working. I think she is tiring of him, but still an amazing morning spent with him in that incredible light. First thing going down to Red Dam to drink. We really are so lucky with what we have. And a big thank you, as always, to all of you, as well as to VM the wildebeest for his spectacular capturing of these magnificent creatures on film, and to Tara and Jerry and FC and Eugene, our technical genius. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you for the sunset safari. Bye-bye for now.